Hello, everyone. Happy February. Welcome to Astro-Tarot Deep Dive with myself, Millie, and Susheela. Um, so we're talking about February, and we were trying to pinpoint, the type of energy. We tried to at least do that at the beginning of every episode. At least for me, it was kind of hard to pinpoint something, and Susheela brought up the perfect word for it, and it's a transition month. I think it's a continuation of what we discussed in January. And we'll get into it, but I think that Pluto moving into 29 degrees of Capricorn really takes center stage in that transition.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very interesting month, and we are doing it on the 9th already. So, the first couple of aspects that we talk about, we're still feeling those energies anyway.
Mhm.
And that might be a good place to start. Uh,
Yeah. So yes, it is Thursday, February 9th. And so just a few days ago on February 5th, we had a very, very potent full moon in Leo. This full moon in Leo had a square to Uranus, and it included a Venus square Mars, Venus in Pisces square Mars and Gemini aspect as well. So here we have fixed energy, which is the moon in Leo. And of course it's full, so the sun has to be directly opposite of that. The sun was in Aquarius, another fixed sign, creating both 90-degree angles to Uranus and Taurus, which has been active, for a few years now, but especially within the last year. I like to call this full moon the full moon of roar. There is a truth that has come out for all of us. I think that people are wanting to speak their truth more. People are reclaiming parts of themselves, perhaps that they had subdued.
mhm.
And I think that the square between Venus and Pisces and Mars and Gemini is that this roaring that we're doing is not landing well on others in our relationships, or it's catching people off guard. Um, this that square to Uranus is interesting because I feel like it can feel different to us. It can feel a bit uncomfortable for us to roar
Mhm.
whatever's coming up in the way that it is. And so this full moon, although it happened on February 5th, it's really active until February 19th,
Mhm.
um, because on February 20th we have a new moon in Pisces. So I'm really curious to see what cards came up for that full moon.
I'm gonna link these two cards together because they're on the same day. They're
Right.
sort of interwoven together. I'm gonna just let you focus on the two images for a moment.
Oh, wow.
So this is actually the one I have for the full moon. Okay, but this energy I think we can relate to. Okay, this is the 10 of swords.
Yeah.
So remember numerologically that tens are the reset. They are the reset before we begin again. So we get to a nine. Nine is our limit. And then we get a one and a zero. And that one and a zero goes back to a one. But it's like a pre-one. It's like the maximum. It's kind of like this month of February. It's that transition number before we reset.
Yeah.
So these two energies are, remember gold. When we have gold, this is our super consciousness, our higher consciousness. And she's got green everywhere. It's green and gold. It's like this very healing thing. So faced with, you're talking about the roar might be just you trying to suppress stuff. It may not
Mhm.
even be directed out there, but to yourself, or your environment is roaring back at you,
Mhm.
because whatever you have been suppressing or neglecting or avoiding or pretending, diminishing in some way,
Yeah.
it's coming out in every possible way. It's reached its maximum of like you cannot withstand this anymore.
Mhm.
And part of it is, you know, it may be right or it may be wrong. That's not the point. It's whatever you were withholding, suppressing, hiding, whatever, is like coming out.
Mhm.
And in that, I guess this is typically the Queen of Pentacles, is a very grounding energy, but this is your higher self. So stuff that aligns you with your purpose, which, you know, we'll get reconnected again with that next moon, the new moon. It's, you can't take this with you. And if you're
Yeah.
taking it with you, you better deal with it.
Mhm.
And if it's in a relationship, you know, there's a lot of relationship issues where people are like, I can't take this anymore. Or
Yeah.
it's their work environment. Maybe they thought, you know, they're going to stick with a job because it has all these positive benefits, but it's not where their higher self wants to be.
Mhm.
So something happens.
Mhm.
Like, it's not a tower, it's like, I don't know, cathartic instead of catastrophic. And so there's something happens to kind of go, hey, you remember your big life purpose? You want to be the Queen of Pentacles? Let's go over there.
Mhm. Yeah, that's really interesting because we have to remember that Leo is the sign of the heart. Leo is the sign and expression of love in the zodiac. Leo is the sign of expression. And while all of those things sound really beautiful because they are, the square to Uranus, Uranus reminds us of the discomfort that can come with the authentic expression of what's in our heart,
Mhm.
of what we actually love, of who we actually love, of how we actually love, right? So there's something very, I don't know that it feels liberating just yet, but
Mhm.
I think that the full moon has called to what you said. If you've suppressed it, why? And are you going to let it be expressed through you?
Mhm.
And so I think this is energy that we're still working through. So it'll be interesting what's coming up for people and how this continues to unfold through the month. This is especially true because the next aspect is February 10th. Pluto moves into the 29th degree of Capricorn and remains there till March 22nd. So, really quick astro lesson. The 29th degree of any sign is a big deal. The 29th degree represents an ending, but there's also this accumulation of the previous 28 degrees of that sign. Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008. It's been a 15-year transit. Pluto in Capricorn has represented, in a nutshell, think about all of the worldly changes that have occurred since 2020, because there was heavy activation of Pluto in Capricorn there. And now here we are coming, there was questions of institutions, of governments, more power to the people through so many protests happening that started in 2020, still happening, women's rights, rights for people of color, all of these things that are more Aquarian in nature, which is where Pluto is headed as of March 23rd. Pluto is now there at 29 degrees Capricorn. The 29th degree being the last degree represents a death. Pluto is the planet of death. The 28th and 29th degrees of Capricorn have been interesting. They've been heavy. January was not what I expected to be. And I think that we got a taste of it. So February might not feel so heavy, but we're still releasing, purging, accepting, surrendering. Pluto is a karmic planet. We can't do much about what has come up to the surface with this full moon in Leo. And what we can do and what we're urged to do, I think, is to lean into it. And I think Pluto at 29 degrees Capricorn is the opportunity that we have to let go of anything that's keeping us from answering that calling.
Mhm. Well, we have this very beautiful card here, which is the High Priestess. It's a number 2. February is a 2. And there's this, okay, so let's look at the symbolism here. We have these red curtains. This is the life force happening. And there's a moon there. There's always a moon in this card in most decks. We've also got this water, this emotion. All of this blue is our emotions and our intellect and our feelings and all that sort of thing. But she's partially hidden. There's always something slightly hidden or behind the veil, or we're in that, again, transition. She's neither in front of it nor behind it, you know. And even what you're saying, we're in this transition place of the 29th degree. We're almost there. We're not where we were. We're just in this little place.
Yeah.
And a lot of this is about intuition. You know, we talk a lot about, you know, in tarot, that you cannot predict the future. You can read the energies. You can decide which road to take. You can see some hidden influences so that you can choose which bumpy road to take, but you cannot sometimes avoid the bumpy road. So this is really about, you know, tuning into that stuff, because we're not able to control our environment. So how do we peek behind the veil just enough to help us? It's like a month where your pipes burst or something, you know, like,
Yeah.
you know, it's like something's going to happen that you have to navigate, that might throw you off, that it's not fun always, but there's that's what contingencies are for. And so allowing yourself that little bit of, oh, like, listen to that little red flag, or listen to that inner voice, or maybe I shouldn't go out today, or whatever, you know. And
Yeah.
that's kind of where your intuition plays into this. And again, there's that connection to why are we here. So when we do move into that March 23rd aspect, I think we should be really comfortable in it. I mean, we talk about purging and surrendering. Like, as long as this podcast has existed, we've been talking about that. And I think everybody is kind of tired of purging and surrendering. But it's ongoing. It's going to keep going for our entire lives.
Right.
But there's that little bit of, there's this extra awareness that's there. You're never going to know everything ever. And we have to kind of get to that place of, you cannot plan for every eventuality, but, you know, sort of this trusting in what's behind the veil, or trusting the feeling that's there, like there's something. That's what this card's about.
Yeah. And not to actually, on February 10th as well, we have Mercury Pluto conjunction in Capricorn. So the sun already did this at the end of Capricorn season. It came together with Pluto, or it passed Pluto as it moved into Aquarius, but they did it at 28 degrees. Mercury is the planet of cognitive thought, of communication, of how we perceive the world through our individual lens. And in Capricorn, we experience a pretty significant Mercury retrograde in Capricorn between December 29th and January 18th. And so now we're coming out of that. Mercury is coming together with Pluto. It doesn't feel like, it feels like what you said, right? There's a feeling there. There's a feeling, trust that feeling. But because we have to be mindful that this is happening at the very last degrees of Capricorn, to me, it doesn't feel like something that's out of the blue. I had no idea. No, I think that this is like the final understanding of that was meant to happen. And for some reason, I kept delaying it.
So we have the 4 of Cups for this. And it's a funny card, and it's funny in this depiction because she's sitting in the shade, and it's not like she's intentionally sitting in the shade. She doesn't think she's intentionally sitting in the shade.
Mhm.
It's kind of like there's options, but I think people might begin to feel like, oh, come on, I've done all this work already. Why does everything suck?
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Like, and so it's to not get trapped in that, because
Mhm.
part of that transition is to not do things in the same way. So
Mhm.
you kind of have to still go, wait a minute, like recognize when you're sitting in this sort of, there's no new options available. I've done
Mhm.
everything I possibly can and everything is still the same. Or I've
Mhm.
just exchanged one crappy thing for another crappy thing. That what we, the stuff we tell ourselves because things didn't work out the way we thought they
Right.
should. It's to then look around and see, oh, wait a minute, there's a different option. Maybe I shouldn't plan this. Maybe I should try that thing. Oh, what does, so my pipes burst. What was I not paying attention to?
Right.
That funny sound I heard in the floorboards was actually, or whatever it is, right? It's, that's kind of what this is about. It's not real in a sense, this Four of Cups. It's
Hmm.
it's always about where we're looking, and
Yeah.
creates our perception.
Yeah. Such a great point. Yeah, that's really good because Mercury in conjunction to Pluto, um, the traditional interpretation of it can also be intense focus to the point of obsession. Um, uh, exactly, tunnel vision, right? So pay attention to what has been just taking over your thoughts. And this isn't just now, guys. This is, look, astrology works in degrees and they work in orbs and all of these things. This is a thought that you've been having since December.
Mhm.
And with that Mercury retrograde, it's gone through changes. And the orb of conjunction to Pluto and Capricorn, it's been going on for at least 2 weeks now. So this isn't anything new. Pluto in the zodiac either empowers or disempowers. So
Mhm.
it's exactly what you said. It's what direction are you looking at?
Yeah.
So February 11th, Mercury moves into Aquarius. So here we have the culmination of this conjunction, very intense conjunction, and Mercury in Aquarius from that peak of energy comes into new space. And Aquarius is always the sign of looking at the future, of looking at technology, what's ahead, uh, how can I do things differently than I've done them before? And when you think of transformation, which Pluto represents, there's a significant shift in perception that's being asked ahead. And I think we're definitely going to see that collectively as Pluto moves into Aquarius in March. Um, but this is us at an individual level. What am I looking forward to, and uh, how does it feel honest to me?
Mhm. That is the King of Wands, and it is a fast moving, forward thinking, maybe, on a downside, not paying attention to details. It can be a little flashy. This is, full of life force here. We've got red and we've got this golden fire, blaring through, and we've got green in the background. It's not that the King of Wands isn't heart focused or anything like that, but the it's action oriented. It's action oriented. Let's, fire things up, but let's add some life into this again. And sometimes that's all you need is like some, big loudmouth at the party to get things going. And then we can take it from here. It's
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Yeah. And everything that comes with this, you know, may not be long term, may not be long term reality, but
Mhm.
it's like at least gets us out of that Four of Cups, like
Yeah,
energy of like, come on now, like,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Exactly. I like that for sure. Because that's how Mercury Pluto can feel. Just very, the rest of the world doesn't exist, just this thing that you're obsessively thinking about.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, on February 15th, we have a Venus Neptune conjunction in Pisces. So this is such a sweet aspect. It's incredible for creative energy. This is creativity meets higher self, meets the universe, meets beauty. Um, to me, this is inspired action. This is channeled creativity type of energy. It's so, however that lands on you, especially if you are a creative, remember, it's not just for that day. How can you take advantage of that energy really all week,
Mhm.
uh, all of that week? In addition, it's also great energy for R&R, rest. I anticipate that with a lot of Pisces energy in the air like this one, people might feel a little not so fired up, just a little bit down, wanting to nap or wanting to take things easy. Um, a lot of head in the clouds. Head in the clouds. Also beautiful energy for love and to date. And it's very romantic. I am not mad at this. One thing I would say is be mindful of looking at things through rose-colored glasses.
Mhm.
It's very sweet energy. It's beautiful. But if there is a pitfall to this energy, is that they're looking at things through rose-colored glasses, not minding certain details or the reality of certain things or situations.
Right. Yeah. Well, we have a very lovely card for that energy. It's the Nine of Cups. The Nine of Cups is always like a welcome card in a reading. It's nines are, the maximum. Cups are things that they're vessels that hold things, whether it's love or food or, you know, enjoyment, whatever it is. It's the things that feed your soul. And there's nine of them. And it's always a very lush, abundant looking
Mhm.
card, so all the things that you want, whatever you value, you get all of it that day. So if you
Mhm.
don't receive it physically, it's a good day to practice your manifesting skills. When you talk about creating something, or creativity, think of that outside of just something artistic. What am I creating today? Like,
Right.
what does 2023 look like if I were to create it? And
Mm.
all the feelings and all the emotions attached to it. It's just abundant energy. So love is at the maximum. What feeds your soul is at the maximum. And because it's a cup and not a disc, it is more in the emotional touchy-feely place as opposed to the cold hard facts kind of place. So yeah.
I love that. Um I really love that you brought up the manifester in us. Um and especially, what does 2023 look like for me?
Mm,
You want to follow what Mercury has been doing, right? Mercury at this point is now in Aquarius thinking about the future, but after having conjuncted Pluto, there's a transformation, there's a shift in perception. Mercury in Aquarius thinks about the future. The next day, we have this Venus Neptune conjunction. How do I get in touch with my manifester? And what does 2023 look like for me? February 16th, we have the Sun Saturn conjunction. The Sun represents us, our identity, our vitality. The conjunction to Saturn is essentially, how am I committing to this vision? If I'm really serious about it and I actually believe in this vision,
mhm.
how am I committing to it? Saturn reminds us that we're running a marathon, not a sprint. Um, this is a beautiful week, and this aspect in particular is great for anything commitment, whether you're committing yourself to something, signing a lease, starting a new job, committing to someone else, especially with that Venus Neptune conjunction the previous day. All of this energy is active all of that week, so it's kind of like all of the elements are coming together, like mind body spirit type of thing, aligning not to manifest things just yet, not just yet, but I think there's a lot more clarity by this point.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So it's funny that you bring up that word commitment and those kind of things, and running a marathon, not a sprint, because
Mhm.
we have the Knight of Wands. So we had the King of Wands and the Knight of Wands. The Knight of Wands is a very impulsive knight.
Mm.
Great to get things going. It can, if it's a person, it could be somebody who woos somebody, the thrill of the chase, but then once they have them, they don't really want them. So
Mhm.
it's, think about that energy within yourself as well. Like, am I just chasing things to get them because the brakes are off? Whether it's a person or a thing or moving, or, oh, like finally there's something, so let me just run after it. That
Mhm.
feeling to run after something is great, but you have to remember what happened the previous day, and like, is this part of my long range plans? Am I running in the right direction? Am I just going off, hot headed and whatever, or, it might not just be your head that's hot at this point, it's it's that very impulsive feeling, and following your impulses can be good if they're in alignment with your long range goals. Otherwise, you might be, flaring up and dying out really quickly. Like, I don't want to say crash and burn, but it could be there if you're not in alignment, if you're not thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And we have to remember too that this is also the last month that Saturn is in Aquarius.
Mhm.
Because as of March, Saturn moves into Pisces as well and starts a whole new 2.5 year cycle. So this commitment that we're talking about can also be a commitment of finishing certain things before you start new ones. Because another aspect on that day is Mercury and Aquarius squaring the nodes. So anytime that any planet makes an aspect to the nodes, there is a quality of, there's like this fated quality. There is like a serendipitous, being in the right place at the right time, having the right conversation, having that aha moment. And so Mercury squaring the nodes, I'm not terribly mad at it. I think that you can have really significant conversations. Again, be in the right place at the right time with the right people. You get that right information, and I don't know. All of a sudden, you're aligned with the job of your dreams, type of thing. That's that's the energy of the nodes. But again, I all of this energy is really beautiful. Just tread lightly, one step at a time, one day at a time.
Mhm. So typically, this is a really great card. It's the 10 of Pentacles. Okay, so
Mhm.
this is very grounded energy, and it also talks about legacies and hereditary and traits that you might have received from your ancestors. It can be wealth, like generational wealth, either coming
Yeah.
to you or what you're laying the groundwork for after you. But it's a 10 again, so we've got that 1 and a 0. We're hitting that reset. We're at that transition place. It's like it
Mhm.
is the maximum. It's one step beyond the maximum. And you might be going, well, wait a minute, I didn't even get my 9 of discs. Now we're already transitioning. What does that mean? I'm going back to 0. I'm going back to 1. But
Mhm.
it can feel like that in the process of you trying to gain ground.
Mhm.
I just leapt forward with this Knight of Wands. Did I run right past that, big bag of money that was there? So again, it's about that aligning yourself with the bigger picture, like getting away from the dreamy aspects and the whatever, like the practical aspects. When you focus on the practical aspects, you are actually creating serendipity.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, there's so much around. I can feel this like energy. I don't know that it's anxious energy or impatient,
Hmm.
but there is this like, when can I go? Can I go now? Can I go now? Is it time yet? Like I feel that February is going to have a lot of that. To me, the best way to mitigate making decisions from that space is, how do you show up for yourself on a daily basis.
Mm.
I think routine tends to help. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate, anything extensive, just showing up for yourself in a way that feels the most honest to you on a daily basis, and making sure that you're taking care of your responsibilities. And sometimes that's enough.
Mhm.
Especially if you're not clear about what direction you're headed to next. Because I think that that will be made very clear, especially as we head more towards March.
Yeah.
But okay, so February 18th, we have Mercury in Aquarius sextile Jupiter in Aries, and the sun moves into Pisces. So here we have air and fire, Mercury in Aquarius, Jupiter in Aries. Air and fire move very quickly, not much forethought, very impulsive. Again, it's exciting energy, but be very mindful that it's aligned. And if not, use it as a source of inspiration, creativity, do the research, get in touch with people that know more than you, ask a lot of questions. Mercury in Aquarius is actually very curious, and wants to learn new things, wants to learn different ways of doing certain things, um, especially the tried and true things. Aquarius comes after the Capricorn, which is the energy of tried and true. And Aquarius's gift to the zodiac is, okay, how do we do it differently? So, but first we have to learn, we have to
Mhm.
acclimate. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to show you the two cards together.
Okay. Okay.
So we've got the Page of Cups for the first aspect, and we have the Death card, which is death and rebirth,
Mhm.
moving into Pisces.
Mhm.
This is unusual. It's very Scorpio energy, actually. And I mean, this whole past year that we've experienced, I
Right.
say, why not? Because all of our, Leo was different. Leo was like a different element, and Libra was a different element. I don't know. We were inventing new elements as we were going through those
Yeah.
zodiacs. So the Page of Cups, again, this is, our emotions. Pages are messengers of whatever the element is, and that suit represents. It's a juvenile energy. So it's not that we're regressing, it's that we're at the base level of a new level. So when
Yes.
you are, and I've said this before, like when you're in primary school, when you're in that final year, you're the top dog, and then you go into high school and you're like the bottom rung again. It's
Hmm.
that energy. And that may feel a bit like, well, I've done all this work. Why am I on the bottom again? But it's still the upside of that is, okay, I've made it to the next level, and I've wiped the slate clean again. So I have
Hmm.
this beginner's mind, and it is juvenile, and it is youthful, and it's not cynical, and it
Hmm.
is open to new fun possibilities, like this little goldfish in her teacup. And it's playful also. It's so you're getting to that place, of maturity. I keep getting accused of being mature myself, and it's yes, when you have to be in a practical level, in practical areas, but you want to keep this, you want to keep that playful side of you, that part that's open to new surprises and different things. So then having this as, the first day of Pisces, it's like there, I think we're really going to feel that transition of walking through the threshold of like, oh, so this is why we've been waiting in the hallway since the beginning of February. And
Yeah.
it's blossoming. And it's also, when we look at this image too, it's exposed. It's not painful,
Hmm.
it's just transformative. It's whenever you see nudity in a card, it's usually being vulnerable and open and natural and not bothered by all of these constructs. So the lily too, it's that optimism of that other life, that higher
Mm.
consciousness. So having those two things together is pretty cool on that
Hmm.
day, because we've got this, remember you are in that beginner's mind, and stay youthful and young and playful and curious. And then yeah, whatever. It's going to keep changing. It's going to keep transitioning and, it's a spiral. We work in this spiral. You get to revisit things from a new level.
Right. Well, it feels appropriate to me that it would be that card for the sun moving into Pisces. We
Yeah.
have to remember that the Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac,
Yeah.
right? And we not only is Pisces the last sign of the zodiac, but again, Pluto is in the 29th degree of Capricorn. That's another ending there. And then we have February 19th, the next day, we have Venus in Pisces sextile Pluto in Capricorn, also at 29 degrees. So this element of endings and beginnings is just hitting us so hard this month. And I think we're really going to feel it, especially as we begin Pisces season. What I love about Pisces energy versus Scorpio energy, that I think Pisces energy does have an element of like hope. There is this, while we can be deep in the waters, it doesn't feel as heavy as Scorpio energy, where if you're deep in the water, you feel like you're drowning.
Mhm.
While Pisces can have that as well, this particular energy doesn't strike me as that. It's I'm moving through this transition. I'm moving through this ending. So that Venus sextile Pluto, I find rather empowering, in empowered in trust, empowered in trust that it is unfolding as it should, whatever it means for you.
Mhm. So we have a very nice King of Pentacles here. It's grounded energy. It's all this blossoming. It's we have the yellow against the blue sky, yellow against this sort of cloudy, stormy sky in the background. Very grounded energy, very optimistic, very, stuff just grows. It's the end of a cycle, beginning of a new cycle. Things are dormant. They look like they're dead. They revive, they regenerate, whatever. It's a very, earthy energy for this. I mean, in the tarot, it's earthy for this watery, whatever this is, what sextile. It's positive and it's blossoming, and it's sort of like a hint of, if you're in the northern hemisphere, it's like a hint of spring. It's like that optimistic thing. It's like, for me, the end of December, beginning of January, when I start getting seed catalogs, I get all excited about, I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. And then I get the seed catalog and there's these new colors of things. I'm like, ooh. This is what it reminds me of, that feeling of optimism, of like you're saying, it's, that Pisces energy, that's the two little fish. It's not just one fish. So there's a
Mhm.
little bit of duality there. Yes, there's the dark, but there's the light also.
Right, right. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful card. So that takes us to February 20th. And this is the new moon in Pisces at 1 degree. And Venus ingresses into Aries. This is fascinating to me because this is the third new moon in a row that we have in the very initial degrees of a sign. New moon in Capricorn was, I believe, at 1 degree, also 1 or 2. New moon in Aquarius was at also 1 or 2 degrees, depending on the minutes. And new moon in Pisces, 1 degree. So here is that element of transition. So perhaps within us, we're anticipating. I've noticed it's especially in consultations. I've noticed this feeling of anticipating this newness, right? To me, the last couple of new moons, including this one, are that there's really brand new beginnings. The degrees of the zodiac matter so much, and so it matters when we have lunar, particularly lunar events in the latter degrees of the zodiac versus the initial degrees of the zodiac. And so on the same day, we have Venus leaving the last sign of the zodiac, which is Pisces, and moving into the first sign of the zodiac, which is Aries, Venus at 0 degrees. So what a fascinating new moon, where it's a new moon in Pisces. It's like the beginning of an end. And Venus in Aries will give us insight as to what this new Aries energy is going to be.
Yeah, these are the two cards that I have are very fascinating also. And I'm the words that you're using, I'm looking at the cards and I'm laughing to myself. So the first one is an ace, which is a 1.
Mhm.
And it's a cup, which is a water sign,
Water.
which is,
Mhm.
so it's the beginning of love, the beginning of a new whatever. And you're saying the beginning of the end. And it's the beginning of, yeah, something unknown, really.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
it's something unknown in the emotional realm. It's
Mhm.
not something in the, maybe not in the physical realm or in the
Mhm.
spiritual realm. It's like in that very intangible place where you feel things. And it's just a beautiful card. It's always a beautiful card. There's never really anything negative about the Ace of Cups. It's just like the beginning of love. And that doesn't have to mean in a relationship or that you meet somebody on that day, but there's something within you that opens up to something new.
Mhm.
Now, the other card that I have is the 5 of Wands. And this is like, typically it's internal frustrations that may manifest on the outside, but
Mhm.
they're like little internal conflicts. Like, because you stayed up late when you really shouldn't have, you didn't get enough sleep and you slept through your alarm, which then made you late for the thing. You missed the bus or you didn't get the parking spot. And then it's that kind of frustration, probably self-inflicted. It may be then you get into arguments with people or whatever, but it's all small and it's all petty
Mhm.
in that trying to fit into a new space of like, oh, well, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know that's where that's supposed to be. Oh, you can't make a left-hand turn there. Combined with this, it's kind of funny to me that they're together, like you enter into a new place and realize, the light switches aren't in the right spot or whatever. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Those those are perfect cards for this energy. I've always found that cusp of Pisces and Aries very fascinating.
Yeah.
Um, I have a lot of theories around it that I've just gathered from observation, but I think it's probably one of the more fascinating cusp in the zodiac because I don't know, there's just something really beautiful about that ending and beginning.
Hmm.
So here's another thing I'll say: be be on the lookout. Pay attention to how your relationships in general, not just romantic, unfold as Venus moves through Aries, because Venus is going to give us an insight as to the solar eclipse in Aries that we're going to have, in April, right? With eclipse season, it's going to give us an insight as to the node switching signs later in the year. So pay attention, because this is the first glimpse that we're going to get into it. And Venus in Aries is not a shy, it's not a shy energy. It's not energy that holds back. So that card had the element of like arguing and pettiness, and um that can unfold. That's very Venus and Aries, but the question is why? Where is that coming from?
And it's also, there's a strategy involved here.
Mhm.
These are
Mhm.
playing pieces, like different aspects of yourself. How do they all play against each other? You
Mhm.
and your environment, you and your choice of partner, you and, the way you get to work, or, how you do things. It's all this strategy, and that's kind of getting ruffled with that
Yeah.
that that energy. It's getting sort of tossed around because there's always that level of discomfort when you want to make a change. You have to break through stuff in order to get where you want to be, and we
Mhm.
forget that.
Mhm. Mhm. Uh, February 21st, we have Mercury and Aquarius square Uranus and Taurus. So we got a glimpse of this when Mercury squared the nodes earlier in the month. Now, very simple interpretation of Mercury square Uranus, you put your foot in your mouth. You
Mm,
speak without any filter, you speak too quickly, you jump to conclusions. So be mindful of that, especially as at this point Venus is now in Aries. On the other hand, on the other hand, anytime Mercury makes any kind of aspect to Uranus, I like to call it the genius factor. Uranus is the higher octave actually of Mercury. So while Mercury is just cognitive thought and just processing our daily life, Uranus is about the bigger ideas. Uranus is like Einstein. Uranus is asking the bigger questions. That's the type of energy. So this, it's a square, it's an aspect of tension. I'm not afraid of it. I actually appreciate it because squares tend to just make things happen and I get to decide how I respond. So Mercury square Uranus, you can also expect the unexpected and in a good way. Mercury square Uranus, you have like a surge of inspiration, get this idea. You have a conversation that you weren't expecting that actually brings you out of your comfort zone in a good way. So it's somewhat of a volatile energy, but it doesn't necessarily have to be bad.
mm-hmm. So that makes perfect sense with this card. It's the Four of Pentacles. So it's a four, it's a square.
Hmm.
Okay? It's got four corners to it. Um, it's a very dualistic card out of all the fours, because on the negative side, it's often the card of a miser. So you can see that she's behind the fence. Everything is lush and opulent. She has this house in the palm of her hands, and it's keeping everybody on the outside. So it can be overly frugal, miserly, hoarding, and that doesn't have to be with just physical things. It can be with emotions or time or self-expression or the need to explain. All of it is like, I am only going to give this much. I'm going to hold on to it. On the other side of it, on the more positive side, because all of those things sort of, they don't lend well to abundance and prosperity and flourishing. Um, there's fear associated with that. So in the positive side, it's actually unlimited wealth, because it's a foundation. Fours are foundations for things. So striking that balance between, am I holding on too much or am I letting go enough? You don't want to let go too much and let everything flow through. And I mean, these are life lessons. It's not just on this day. You want to sort of conduct yourself like that at all times. But there are times when you should be taking bigger risks. And there are times when you need to really be frugal. But with this specific aspect, it's talking about not just about your finances, but how, how do you interact with others? How do you interact with your big goals? How do you, are you giving it enough? Or are you holding back due to fear? So that's what we have there.
I really liked how you touched on the element of, well, what sounded like value. And Uranus is in Taurus, and Taurus is always going to uh, be an indicator of value, worth, whether it's of money or our time or our efforts, right? And so Uranus, having been there for a few years now and will remain there for a few more, Uranus is about what you just said, finding that balance of what really deserves my time, energy, and effort, and how do I commit to that? How do I really honor that?
Mhm.
Um, I mean, look, Uranus and Taurus is definitely about like wealth, uh, generational wealth, if you will, or the beginning of generational wealth. Um, and over the last couple of years, and I think that particularly this year, maybe next, uh, at a collective level, the opportunity for people who normally would not be able to do that will be there. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's the Four of Discs is an interesting card in that it almost surpasses the Ten of Discs
Hmm.
in the amount. It's because there's a lot of potential with this, whereas the 10, you've already arrived. So with the four, it's the potential for unlimited wealth if you remove the fear. And the fear
Yeah.
doesn't mean running forward going, oh, I'm going to dump all my money into the stock. It's like thinking clearly, having a well-balanced, very practical approach to something, and then doing it, then going through and doing it. That's what that's about.
That's amazing. I love that. Gives me chills and excites me. February 22nd, Mars in Aquarius creates a trine. I'm sorry, Mercury in Aquarius creates a trine to Mars in Gemini. So this is where we want to be very mindful about what you just said. So the square is a tension that can stop us in our tracks. It's like, I want to, but,
Mm,
right? And so that but doesn't have to be an impediment. It's just a matter of, I want to, but if I can't right now, then what do I have to do? Like this, it's calling you to be strategic, especially the combination of Aquarius and Taurus on the 21st. The combo of Mercury and Aquarius trine Mars and Gemini on the 22nd, on the one hand, if you're needing to be strategic about something and you want to move forward, this is about information. Aquarius and Gemini are all about information. Study, um, reach out to people who know more than you, get very well educated around something.
mm,
Mercury trine Mars is also just really beautiful energy to have conversations with people, to reach out to people that you haven't reached out to. Mars and Gemini now direct, it's about a different outlook. And Mercury there in the Aquarius is about, how does this different outlook help me create a different future? There's so much energy around a different future. It gets to look different. And I
mhm.
think that there's a little bit of discomfort there because I don't think we really understand how different the future looks.
Yeah, and I don't think we should know.
Mhm,
And part of that too is not being so attached to how things are going to line up,
mhm,
but sort of keep focused on the future feeling and
mhm,
take steps to go there and be willing to modify as you go.
mhm,
So
mhm.
this card's going to scare people. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid when you see this. I will explain why it's not so scary. So we have the Three of Swords here.
Okay.
Three of Swords. And in every deck, you usually see something affecting the heart, and you see three swords in it. And it's
Mhm,
about pain and sorrow and wounds and, misery and all of these, like, negative things. Okay, fine. We've got, other than Mars, Mercury has this air kind of feeling to it. And we have Aquarius and we have Gemini. It's all air, 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 air. Swords are air. Okay,
mhm,
so it also involves breathing. You cannot breathing and speaking. So when you go to speak, you need air. Your intellect, where does it come from? It's this very ethereal kind of thing. So everything that you think and everything that you say in this card affects your heart. And three is a, very magical number. And we're talking about trines, and there you go. There it is again. So these three very airy things involved. It's just like, do I want to revisit that, whatever created that old pain again? Do I want to keep feeling that feeling? Do I want to be a victim? Do I want to create a brand new world with the same old thing. Am I choosing my words in a way that will create, when we talk about in English spelling, the word spelling is, and we talk about spell casting, we are creating through writing by taking these sounds and putting them on paper. We are manifesting something. So it's this reminder of really being thoughtful about what you think and feel and say, because it's happening. You are creating it. And to not be attached to all the how stuff all the way to the finish line, because that's going to get you this big gaping wound for sure. That's a recipe for a lot of agony. So it's choose what to focus on, ignore the how, let it come to you how it's supposed to, and then it gets much easier.
Yeah, I really love how you said that the catching of the breath. With that much air energy, Mercury in Aquarius, Mars in Gemini, it's like like, and not catching your breath in between. And so your thoughts can definitely feel the same. And
Mhm.
so you're just lost. So embrace the curiosity that this energy brings you. So that's what I meant earlier by like get educated, learn the things, especially if it's something new, get excited about that. But I'm really glad that you brought up the point of don't worry about the how so much. Like with Pisces energy in the air and so much air energy also there, this is spell casting type of energy. Get excited. Get excited. Finally, February 26th, we have the Sun in Pisces sextile the North Node in Taurus. So remember, the nodes are they're what's the word I'm looking for? They're karmic in nature. So if a planet touches one node, it immediately touches another. So it creates a sextile to the North Node, but it also creates a trine to the South Node. So the Sun in Pisces is saying hello to the South Node in Scorpio from far away. The South Node represents endings and purging. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. We're in the middle of this transition. The sextile, the connection to the North Node in Taurus, Earth energy. We've had so much experience with the North Node in Taurus. And really, if 2022 has been rough, like from 2022 till now has been rough, the North Node in Taurus is that energy that has kept you moving and grounded, that has kept you saying, okay, I get up and do life again. I get up and do life again. The North Node energy is not always easy energy to go to because the North Node requires growth. So the connection between the Sun in Pisces and the North Node in Taurus, I love when these two elements connect, water and earth, because to me it always represents fertile ground for something to grow. Or it can be mud that we drag our feet through. To me, the fertile ground is created by what are you focusing on? Are you excited about it? Are you letting go of the how for now? The how, believe me, will come. March will bring it. Or, as Susheela mentioned earlier, are you still falling into the victim mode, bringing those old stories with you, dragging you through the mud? It's so much of that. I feel that there's this constant, it's almost like a review before we take like a test or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the best day of the year, if you're me, because that's my birthday. But that's besides the point. What's interesting too for me personally is that it's got my three things. So Sun in Pisces, rising sign in Taurus, and my moon in Scorpio. So it's quite interesting.
Yeah.
And the traditional meaning of the Three of Cups is usually a celebration or something like that. But in this case, the energy around it is like new alliances and new alliances with a new collective. Who is in your circle? Who are you connected to, you know, guilty by association or the opposite of that.
Mhm.
And it can also be, you know, what you talked about values before, what values are you aligning yourself with? And it's a collaboration of all those things. It can be a very internal collaboration too, of like, wait a minute, I need to reconcile these two seemingly
Mhm.
conflicting aspects of myself, or I'm trying to do this thing out there in the world and I can't do it alone. So I need to build alliances with people. And the downside of that is that it can be opportunistic. But, you know, if you're coming at it from the right place, like a very humble collective energy that you also have to reciprocate within that trio. So again, we have another 3 happening here, which is very important. It's, you know, the me and you makes we kind
Mhm.
of thing, you
Mhm.
know, being part of a little group. And that group, you know, it's nice in this one that they've got these sort of hula hoops around, that you may align with one thing this way and you may align with something else that way, but then those 2 things also align that you're not aligned with. And all of that's okay. And it's that moving out of the polarization that they would like us to be doing. It's either bad or it's good, or it's this party or that party, or it's this thing you're for or against. But we're actually in this, really, we're in this collaborative space, and it's a very magical space where you
Mhm.
can reconcile all these different elements, that it's not black or white. We live in this middle place, this third option, and that third option is vast.
Mhm. Mhm. It, that that sense of community, the collective, all of that, not, doing life alone, the whole it takes a village, all of that. With Pluto moving into Aquarius, that's going to be so activated.
Mhm.
Um, more of like power to the people versus power to the few, right? That's the transition from Pluto in Capricorn to Pluto in Aquarius. Remember, Pluto either empowers or disempowers, and Aquarius is the energy of community. And Pluto will empower that if we are intentional about moving in that direction. So,
Mhm.
what a beautiful card to have as the last card of the month before we move into March, which is full of transitions.
Yeah, knee deep in Pisces season at that point. So
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, well, there we have it. So it's a short month, and not everything is going to happen all at once. And yeah, don't get impatient. Don't get impulsive. We're wading through. Yeah.
I think again, it calls more for, at least for me, it calls like for excitement, looking
Mhm.
forward to things, but also, you know, especially as we're really moved in towards Pisces season, let it flow, man. Let it, let the
Yeah,
tears flow. Let all of that move through you, because I think I think there's a part of us that's really recognizing things can be different. Things can be different.
they can be, and they need to be. I think
Hmm.
that's the
Hmm.
thing. You know,
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, they need to be different for us to enter into this new space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Well, thank you so much, Susheela, and thank you all so much. And we will see you in March. Have a great month.
Yes, thanks. And if you do like this, if it resonates with you, like it and share it and subscribe and all those things that we would like you to, and the algorithms to do on YouTube.
Right?
Okay.
Yes, please.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.